to today's study session. Today is Tuesday, June 13th. It's 4:42 p.m. and we are convened today as the Provo City School District Board of Education. We're meeting at 280 West 940 North in Provo, Utah. And we will go ahead and begin with a roll call. I'm Rebecca Nielsen, Board President.
Devin Daly, Director of Accounting.
Melanie Paul, Board Member.
Lisa Boyce, Board Member.
Megan Wagner, Board Member.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Wendy Dow, Future Superintendent.
You can tell soon to be ex-superintendent.
His language gets stronger.
That was a little too chipper. You were so chipper when you said. Okay, and welcome to everybody else who's here with us today. We have a full crowd. This is kind of fun. I will go ahead and entertain a motion to convene.
I move that we convene the study session.
Okay, thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Board Member Van Wagenen. We're now in our study session. And before we move any further, I just want to give Wendy a couple quick minutes to make a special announcement.
Sure. Do I stand up?
You can say right there. You're good.
Yeah. We did make 2 appointments this week, and I brought these individuals in so that you could get a chance to meet them. So we have Jared Seitz, who is our former Provo High principal, who's now going to be our assistant superintendent over elementary education, and Daryl Jensen, who's coming to us from Canyon School District, principal at Corner Canyon High School. He'll be our assistant superintendent over secondary education. So we're very excited to have them on board and be part of our team. So.
Okay, great. Welcome to both of you. And again, to everyone else who's here. We're so excited for that. That'll be so fun. All right. Thank you. We'll go ahead and stick back to the agenda, and we'll go ahead with item number 4, Board Handbook Training today by Board Member Gina Hales.
Okay, so there is a PowerPoint, and as she's pulling that up, I basically, because my understanding is we can choose from anything, right? I figured it's more orderly if I just went and finished and picked up where Board Member Boyce left off, and it happens to be what's happening in our district right now. So if we go to the next slide, appointment of the superintendent and business administrator. That's one of our main jobs. So we appointed a new business administrator. We hired a new business administrator in July of 2021, right? July of 2021. And then we just appointed or chose a new superintendent to lead our district, who will start on July 1st. And basically, I pulled a few things from there, and I highlighted the parts that I wanted to just quickly highlight. The board expects these appointed officers to work together to promote student learning. A couple things here. We need to be able to work together, right? And also, our main purpose as a school district and a school board is to promote student learning. And I know there's so many other things that go on, and they are all very, very important. I am a social worker, and I've been a school social worker, and that is dear to my heart, and I hope that and I think that's part of learning, but our main job as a school board is to ensure that we promote student learning. And so I think we need to make sure that that is what we are laser focused on, and that everything else is important and it's all part of it, but student learning and student achievement is where our focus needs to be. And in the end, at the end of this paragraph, we further expect that these 2 individuals will exemplify the highest standards of professional competence and ethical conduct. And I would like to say that I would expect that all board members also do this, and that as we set the tone, that hopefully everybody in the district will feel that, and they will also do these things. Okay, next slide. All right, so our relationship with the superintendent, we're going to consult, right? We're going to consult together regarding all the things that happen, and I appreciate the consultation that happens. I happen to have a PhD in the education field, but I have not taught in public education, and so I like to be able to consult, and so I appreciate that. We delegate our executive powers, and we rely on the expertise of the superintendent. And I heavily rely on it because I don't know all the things the superintendent knows. We hold responsible the superintendent for administering policies, executing board decisions, and achieving board goals. And the superintendent is accountable, right? So we hold them responsible, and they're accountable to us for their performance. All right, next. All right, so this is something that I at times forget, but it's right here in this part of the handbook. The board will never give instructions to persons who report directly or indirectly to the superintendent. sometimes, like poor Todd, I'm like, Todd, I need help with this. Todd or Alex, can you do that? And I have to sometimes backtrack and say, I probably need to talk to the superintendent. And so I think that we can get bogged down in this sometimes as well. So what I try, my rule of thumb for myself is, I will go to Keith and now Wendy and say, hey, I need some help with this project. For example, our student board representatives. I already went to Wendy and said, Todd was my go-to for this. I'm going to need Daryl, is that correct? To be my go-to if it's okay with you. So I got permission with that, and then we're going to work together. I'm not necessarily going to tell him what to do, although I'm a little bossy, my mom says. But we're going to consult together and work together, but I've gotten permission first from Wendy to make sure that that is okay with Wendy, and then I move forward. So I'm not having to email her, can I talk to Daryl today, right? And so I think that's kind of what we're talking about. We will refrain from evaluating either formally or informally staff or other than the superintendent and the business administrator. Sometimes that can be hard too. I don't think I do that. I need to make sure I don't do that in my head either, right? Okay, next one. Okay, our relationship with the business administrator. We expect accurate records, meetings of boards and boards' fiscal obligations. We rely on the VA for financial expertise, and I will tell you, I told you I'm a social worker. We're not usually good at numbers, and that holds true for me. I have to go to him all the time and ask for that, so we rely on him for that, or him or her. We hold responsible for accuracy, integrity, and timely communication, and we're accountable to the board. They are accountable to the board for their performance. Is that the last one? Okay, so individual board member, I think this is the last one. Individual board member relationships with the superintendent and business administrator. So we want it to be open, collaborative, and warm, okay, between the superintendent and the business administrator, our relationship with them. No individual board member should attempt to direct the superintendent or business administrator. It takes, people always say, they say different things to me. I'm like, I am one person of 7 on the board. It doesn't matter what I say unless I get 3 other people to go with me. And so we need to remember that. We shouldn't be directing without a majority. And then the entire board or a majority working through the board president is welcome to bring matters of concern to the superintendent or business administrator and expect some kind of follow-up. And so I thought that was great. It fits right in with what we're doing now. And I want to thank Keith for what he's done for our district. And I want to thank Wendy for being willing to come on board and continue to work with us. I have to be honest, I don't know why anyone would want to be a superintendent. It's a highly thankless job from what I've seen. But I am so grateful that someone is willing. I'm a therapist, so I am very grateful for those individuals who are willing to help us. And not just our superintendents, but our assistant superintendents, our administrators, and all the people in the schools who are willing to work with the very imperfect board that you have, but very dedicated. We are very dedicated. We're a little too dedicated sometimes. But I look forward to working with our new superintendent, the new administrators we have, and while we are sad to see Todd and Alex and whomever else leave, I'm grateful for the service that you guys have provided to our district, and we hope to steal you back in a future day. And that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Gina. Anybody have any questions for Gina, or?
I don't have any answers, so maybe you should ask for that.
All right, forget that. There are no questions for that. We'll just move on to item number 5, which is a construction update, and we will give the time now to Chad Jones, who will do that for us.
We're checking if Juan has the presentation. I can just present.
Why don't you do that, and then I can get caught up in the meeting because I'm not there yet.
Yes. Yeah, there you are. Oh, okay. I thought I saw you walk in, and then I couldn't find you because you're directly behind me.
He's here.
If I may, I'd like to bring Brandon Gray up with me as well. He works with me. He knows the details on this much better than I do.
Yes, and first of all, please excuse my attire. I've been on these construction sites all day, so next time I'll remember to be as dapper as the rest of you gentlemen.
All good.
Yeah, so starting with Timpview, let me stand up here. Starting with Timpview, there's been a substantial amount of progress this month since the last time you met. The areas of concern from last time are no longer a concern. The roof and walls are now up in all of the sections. We're dried in completely. If you could go to the next slide, please. This shows kind of going from east to west. the exterior of the building, which is all wrapping up very well. If you go to the next slide, this kind of shows a short drone video. Well, this is a good scenic picture of the backside. Here's some interior photos we'd like to take a time to look at. This is on the first and second floor. Most of the finishes are in. We have interior glazing that's gone up. As you move up towards the third floor, it's a little further behind just in the way the construction sequencing has been.
Carpet
But we
is in,
have
yeah.
we have carpet, almost all of the finishes in on the first 2 levels. The third level is, because it wasn't completely dried in before this month, was lagging a little bit behind, but we have, it's kind of hard to tell, but we have tile following right behind sheetrock just to catch up as much as possible. These are going to be the amazing learning stairs. It's cool to see all these pieces come together. Next slide, please. I'm not sure who's driving, so. Okay. Yeah, just showing more of the interior spaces. This would be the third level with, carpet not in quite yet, and then first and second floor carpet just missing essentially the ceiling tiles. We could probably, this is just showing an area 208 and 108, which is going to be the media center, the framing and mechanical, electrical, plumbing activities that are currently being done right now. And again, you can kind of see in the back corner tile falling right behind, literally right on the heels of the rest of the subcontractors. So, next slide. They've also started the footings and foundations for the new concession building, and that's what you're seeing here next to the football field. This is a short drone video showing the outside.
If you would include music next time, that would be
Some theme.
Eye of the Tiger or
Isn't
And
there,
this is the new bus turnaround, is that right, for now?
No, it's actually on the other side.
Oh, by the band room still? But I thought up higher they were gonna have.
Up higher is the east parking lot, which is probably what you're thinking, which is also going to be new, yes.
Brandon also is a Timpview grad.
That's true. I went to Timpview, so.
Very cool.
Yeah,
How
it's
many
cool
total
to.
classrooms in this new wing?
What's that?
How many total classrooms in this new wing?
Total classrooms, I'm not 100% sure actually. I think it's 21
I think so.
or thereabouts.
In the new wing.
So it's, this is the new bus loop right here.
Yeah.
And then the east parking lot is back this way now.
Oh, so that's special ed though. Over here, enter park, the buses. That's what they call
And
us.
also for like the cafeteria.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good.
Still on schedule?
It is still on schedule, yes.
So so for the public's sake, we have no worries about getting in before school starts in the fall, correct?
Everything has to go perfectly.
We have no
but yes.
worries. I guess let me put it as of
should
right
make
now,
on the record.
we're in the building when school starts, right?
That is
The
plan.
biggest concern is the elevator. Elevators, for some reason, are a shortage everywhere. And they said, they gave us, the original date got pushed back. If it gets pushed back again, we may need to find another solution. But right now, it's tracking as if it's going to be here and it's going to be on time.
Mhm.
And we probably can't open without an elevator, right, if we didn't have that?
Correct. We can't get occupancy without.
But as of now, it's on time, and we are not
Yes.
worried.
Mhm.
Yes.
as long as it- Okay.
And you
Not
have to
worried.
be ready to get in
We
their
have to
car
continue to
and
clarify.
drive to the elevator and load the elevator in their wagon.
Right.
Bring it back on time.
We have furniture scheduled, we have everything ready to go as if it's going to open.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on Timpview before we move to Wasatch?
No, but it
Thank
looks
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wasatch is moving right along. We have footings and foundations going in on the north and south side of the building, and the gym is following right behind. You can see all of the plumbing stubs coming up through the concrete. Once we get this stage done, we'll start flat work and masonry activities, and then we'll be starting to go vertical with the building, so it'll come together relatively quickly from here. Next slide,
So
please.
is all the dirt moving done?
The large portion of it, yes. There are a few boulders, and that's an understatement. There are massive boulders on that site that need to be moved. So
Are the retaining walls done?
no, this is wall number 4, just over here, that we'll see in a minute, and that one just started. It's one of the smaller walls.
And then they're doing this one right here.
Oh, that's wall 4
Yeah,
actually.
wall 4 right
Yeah.
here. But the whole building pad is leveled. This is the upper floor, ready for the footings and foundations.
So that's a big deal, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
It took a long time to get to this.
Really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question about the walls that I'm getting? There obviously is continual concern about the expansiveness of these retaining walls. And I think people are feeling blindsided that this was not what they thought. Has anything changed, or I mean, obviously I came in January before and the prep had already started. I think some felt like that Locust Lane wall was going to be more flush with the ground. But talking to Derek, it sounds like cost-wise it's better built up as opposed to digging out more. Is that right?
Yeah,
And
that's
I guess
right.
was it ever the plan to dig out more, or was this always the plan? And do you know that?
The plan was to, I wasn't involved during that time as
Yeah.
well, but I would assume typically the plan is to level the site as much as you can.
Okay.
So dig from one, raise on the other.
Okay.
To minimize how much dirt and fill you have to bring in.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm sure they did it for that cost.
I think
Sure,
the
that's
challenge
what
on
it's
this
for.
would have been, we didn't see any architectural renderings on this one after the renegotiation took place with the architect.
Yeah.
So we weren't actually prepared for, in our mind's eye, what this would look like.
Sure, and that's what I've gathered, but I'm just getting a lot
Do
of...
we have them now, architectural renderings to show,
I
when
don't
this is
believe we do.
complete with some landscaping, et cetera, what it will look like? Because it's fairly daunting.
I don't
when you
believe
try
we
to
do,
test
but
it.
we should we'll make a point to ask for that, and we can get it on the website.
I think that would be
We'll
Yes,
get it.
I agree.
Yeah, we can chase those.
We'll get that.
Because I think in those two walls, right, people are so concerned about kids climbing,
Mhm.
and are convinced that fencing, putting fence on each level is gonna, keep people off. But I'm hoping, right, once we get it all up, we'll
Yeah.
navigate those challenges.
The big walls are done.
The big critical walls are done. The rest of the walls will continue to be built as the building is going
Right.
vertical.
And then each of those, they'll have like some type of fencing, so you can't climb from one to the
Yes.
next, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I think,
We can use it to our
I think
advantage. We put up
some kind of visual
Aid,
would
rendering.
assist,
Yeah.
because,
Yes.
even some of our teenagers are already issuing challenges regarding the walls, right? So I'm just saying, something that shows these are safe walls, parents,
Yeah, it
your
would
kids
actually
are,
help a
because they're,
lot.
that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, that's
you.
great feedback. We'll get that. Here's another short drone video just showing a little bit more of the site.
Which direction are we facing right now? Are we looking north?
We're looking towards the Y.
East?
We're
Okay.
right
Yeah.
over-
We're looking east.
We're right over Locust Lane.
This is the church right down here.
Yeah, this is Locust. Yeah, those walls look big on the video, but when you're standing next to them,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
a
this
different.
does not do it
No,
justice.
yeah.
It does not do
No.
justice.
That will be
at all.
green area, right? That's.
Back
green
in
space?
here,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, that's green space, okay.
Okay. Any other questions on Wasatch?
Oh,
Timeline, yeah, how close are, I mean, I know we're really pushing to even try to make it in by the fall of 2024, or by start of school.
Right now, the timeline is in January of 2024. To complete.
So 2025. Like that's the school year?
2024 would be in like.
2025.
Right, 2025, yeah, sorry.
No, got it.
Awesome.
25.
You wish.
I wish, yeah. In the cardboard building. You ready for it?
Structurally sound.
Yeah, so this is Shoreline. This one is just making amazing progress. They are averaging 30, 35 masons a day here, and they've made so much progress that the rest of these trades, framing, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, have more than enough work to do for, you know, a substantial amount of time. So this is just showcasing a few of the areas that are a little bit more ahead, where the roof is, the deck is in place, and mechanical starting to go in. Actually, some of the equipment has already been delivered and installed on the roof. So certain pieces of this are much more ahead than the other projects. You can go to the next one. This is kind of showing the auditorium and, as I mentioned, the equipment room, how everything is just buttoning together nicely. This is, I want to say, the cafeteria.
Choir? No, we got
Oh,
choir.
we got choir on this side, and then
the gym.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and here's another drone video showing the outside.
Sorry.
No worries.
This one's 5 minutes.
This is 5 minutes
This is a long one.
We probably don't need to see all.
No.
Especially if there's no
Just
music.
let me know.
We need music next
Yeah,
time.
music,
It's a
maybe.
recurring theme. We'll make sure we have that.
So these are the academic wings here. And kind of the gym back here in this area, cafeteria in this middle area, common area, entry over on that rounded part.
That's one wing on the right with the hallway down the middle?
Correct.
Okay, same on the left there,
Yes.
okay.
Yep, that's the main entry right there where it's curved.
How about progress on the street to the north? I can't remember the
Utilities are
number.
in the street.
Say that again?
Utilities are into the street.
Okay, because I know we had to like add, right, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, this street over here, right?
Mm-hmm. Is
Yeah.
that, is it 9?
890 south.
890.
890 south.
You can kind of see back on this, there was the outbuilding storage. They've already started that. And the soccer field. So yeah.
And that gravel portion is where the city starts, right?
That's the parking lot we were
City,
talking
that
about.
parking lot. Okay.
Putting it connecting right now.
Whoever's driving is going a little crazy.
This is kind of random, but have we talked to the city about home run baseballs?
Yeah, we were talking about that today.
Yeah.
Okay,
actually,
like
yeah.
if there's nothing, I mean, if there's like a really great baseball player, softball player out there, like we could be getting balls through our windows.
There are big windows on that side as well.
Yeah, and so are we, I mean, do we want them to put up nets or, I don't know, I don't want to prevent home runs if they steal people, but I'm thinking because I'm sitting at baseball games all day, every day, still with my kids, and that I just realized we're close there.
We are
like-
close, yeah.
Mhm.
And that's definitely something that we can look into a little bit further. Yeah.
I mean, I would never park my car there, so I don't, I mean,
Yeah.
right, but you would start thinking like that when you see so many baseball games.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's probably good.
That's great.
Thank you, that is awesome.
Yeah, this is just showing a little bit more of that outbuilding and soccer field area, but I think that's it. Yep. Any other questions?
The timeline is fall of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome job.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 6. We're going to be talking about the secondary ELD curriculum, and we'll give that time to Anne-Marie.
Yeah. As you know, we have policy guiding how we get curriculum. There are a few standards from the state that aren't in the typical state standards. One of those is ELD, that's English Language Development, aka ESL. And Michelle, working in the Title Division, Title I and Title III, has been working with those teachers and has gone through our current policy 4020 curriculum acquisition process and order to bring a curriculum to you today. First, we'll be asking for your authorization for use, and second, for the purchase thereof. She followed the procedures in that with teams and had some really good responses from the community and teachers to this curriculum. So Michelle will tell more about it.
It may be easier for me to answer any questions you might have. The program that the committee selected is by Vista Higher Ed Learning. There's two major components, one kind of minor supplement, but essentially Get Ready is the first portion and Bridges is the second. It is applicable 6th through 12th grade. It is leveled according to ELD standards. The standards we use are called WIDA, and most of the country uses those standards for ELD. It's the first program the secondary has seen that is directly tied to those WIDA standards. 7 years ago when we adopted the first program Provo had ever had for ELD, there was really only one program available at the time. That has since expired. We've been kind of clinging onto it for the last year, hoping to revise what was needed before. And anyway, so we followed the process, had great participation from teachers and the community. So with that, maybe better to answer your questions if you have them.
I have a few.
Yeah.
This is just part of our regular 7-year curriculum cycle, right?
So this is different because ELD or multi-language learner programs don't have state standards. There are no national standards or state standards for ELD. So it's not on the state's curriculum cycle like ELA or math or science or social studies or even CTE because there are no standards. So it's a little different. What I've tried to do is be aware of how long we've had a program for and addressing the needs really every year with secondary. So working monthly really with all the secondary schools and their ELD teachers all year, every year for the past many years, and addressing those needs as they come up. So a little different because we're not in a cycle. 7 years ago when we got the first curriculum, the policy was different. It was a little more general because there weren't such different laws as there are now with curriculum. So we were able to kind of pilot something and try it out by request, I should add, by the secondary administrators and teachers at the time. Very difficult to teach ELD students in secondary, especially new to the country students who don't have any language, especially reading and writing. And secondary teachers, though they might have their ESL endorsement, maybe don't have how to teach reading, how to teach phonics, and those things. So, no, it's not the 7-year. What I try to do is just every year address what are your needs, what do you need. We've supplemented with specific things along the way. And with National Geographic, which is the current program expiring and no longer in publication, we knew we had to look at something more. So no, but kind of yes, but no.
Okay. And how many students does this help?
So we put the RFP out for the total ELD population in secondary. So that's about 1,300 students, and that includes all levels. So ELD students are leveled proficiency-wise 1 through actually 6. We estimated 1 through 4. Levels 5 and 6 students are monitored for 4 years, so they're not really in ELD classes, though they could be if that support was needed. In the past, typical ELD students take an elective class that just focuses on their English language development skills, so it's not content-based. It is listening, speaking, reading, writing the English language. And most of the secondary schools have for sure a level 1 class, 2 class, and 3 and 4 kind of based off of need. So we're transitioning in our secondary schools to having more ELD classes available, not because our ELD numbers are increasing, but because we are learning more about the increased need of ML students, and that just because you're a 4 doesn't actually mean you're totally proficient, and you might need some extra support, and this class is where you can get that. So 1,300 students is the total that could be, and we felt that was the best
Through
move.
level 6?
Through level 4, actually.
1 through 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 1 through 4.
1 through 4, yeah. Our 5s and 6s can really get what they need in the context of sheltered instruction and the English ELA classes. So it is accurate in that that's what we could have. I don't know that we will have that many enrolled in ELD, but we wanted to be really safe to say we could have this many, so.
Okay.
And most of the secondary schools are moving towards serving more ELD students in an ELD class. So I wanted to be able to make sure we had enough curriculum so that when Timpview adds, as an example, Timpview's adding probably 3 more ELD classes next school year. I don't want to just have one class, so then we need to have enough.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions for
Yeah, I do.
Michelle?
So, how is this related to the large purchase request?
It is the large purchase request.
Okay,
One of
so
them.
then, in the business meeting, agenda items number 2 and 4 are the exact same thing then?
Do you want me to clarify?
Please, because we talked about this the other day in
Yeah.
council.
So according to our policy, there are 2 actions needed. First is the board acceptance of, yes, we will accept or reject this program being used. We are choosing that. Then just any purchase that needs that approval
So
as well.
first approves the curriculum, second approves the amount.
Yeah.
The
A
cost.
large purchase request.
Okay.
Okay. And where is the company invoice?
So that's attached, and it's actually not an
It's not a
invoice.
company invoice.
No, it's not, and the reason for that is because we don't know exact amounts yet. So when I spoke with Keith about this, he recommended that I put it in for the maximum amount possible until we're able to know exactly how many classes that the high school, the secondary are all in the middle of deciding based off of end of year data, how many students need ELD, how many teachers are we going to need. So until those are exactly solid, I can't order the curriculum until I have those exact numbers. So the most it would be is what you see attached in the board docs, that 217.
And one of the reasons we did it that way also was just so we can not have to wait for the August board meeting, so that she needs to get this ordered so we can have it for the start of school. So giving this to you as a maximum, you've seen this kind of thing before, it's just not common.
Okay, so this is for a 1-year program?
No.
Okay.
No, this will be it's a 6-year license.
Okay. I really don't like approving things without seeing a company invoice.
That's what we can do.
If the recommendation from the board is to delete that, Terry, I mean, I'm here to take your recommendation and approval or not. I'll just, as Keith stated, the ripple effect of not is we can't order until August, since you don't have a board meeting scheduled until then, and that means not ordering, and the teachers won't have the materials until September, maybe. They know that, the committee knows that, the teachers know that it's maybe now or it's maybe later. I've been very clear with that information.
But the figure of 217, we know for sure that is the max.
For sure,
no matter
that's the
what.
max. That is like the most of everything possible. Yes. Yeah.
So we can be assured that no matter what.
No matter what, it's
that's
not going
the very
fast.
best.
Are you done, Terry?
Yeah.
So I guess my follow-up question to that is, I know in the past we've talked about whether curriculum gets used by teachers or not, right?
Yeah.
And that's not for us to necessarily dictate in this moment, but my question, I guess, to you is what sense do you have around the teachers in these ELD settings of their desire to have a curriculum that they would use? Like, do you get the sense that this is something, because I kind of feel like in this context, we would all be motivated to use the curriculum given to us, but I'm curious to know what you think.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question. I'm involved also with the ELA committee, and that perspective of teachers using curriculum is very different than the ELD department. So these teachers recognize, as a really, I would say 100% of them, truthfully, really understand if they don't have curriculum, they really don't know how to meet the needs of these students because there are no attached standards. There are sort of kind of, but the detail involved in planning lessons and creating scope and sequence, continuum, can do, pacing guides, assessments, all of progress monitoring, they have to invent all of that. It's really one of the only content areas that has to happen that way, and that is incredibly painful and difficult, and they all recognize that. In fact, I was sharing with Wendy this morning that when this committee met, over and looking at the curriculum, one of the most exciting things for them collectively was the lower level seeing a scope and sequence for teaching. It had alphabetic principle and handwriting and phonemic awareness and phonics and fluency and vocabulary, and secondary teachers were like, this is amazing! And so they really, this group in particular, I mean, they know and are, yeah, they've already been using, so we've been using a curriculum for the last 7 years, and all of them use this curriculum. So they're experienced in using a curriculum. I would say, I mean, of course, there's some who don't fully implement the same level, but I also think that's okay, depending on the student sitting in front of you. But a different group than maybe that data you've seen previously. I know Amory has shared with you probably, what, a year and a half ago, a study session a year-ish ago about curriculum usage across the district, but specifically with secondary. This group of teachers in this content area, the experience is very different.
Any more questions for Michelle? Okay.
So as Terry alluded to, there will be 2 actions. One will be to approve the curriculum, one will be to approve the purchase. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, item number 7, large purchase items. Devin, that's you.
Okay, so we have 5 out there currently. One is the ELD curriculum that Michelle just presented. Another one is also related to Michelle's. There's a grant from the state that provided some special ed curriculum, from the 95% group. That will provide some tier 2 instruction at the elementary schools. That was the special ed grant.
Yeah.
And that grant funding will fund the whole portion. Then you have the Timpview parking lot modifications that I believe was sent to you from Derek a little bit ago. This is just for the formal approval. That one is for the parking lot modifications on the east side. The east parking lot.
Is that attached to this item?
So I did not get the documentation before the board meeting. And so I will send that out as soon as we're done, so you can review it. The third one is the vape detection system. Originally, that one was listed at just over $100,000. We had the bid openings for this afternoon, and for 2 schools, it'll be $359,750. And that is attached in the executive part because the bid has not been awarded yet, and so that we're in the process of doing that. And then the last one is the cabling at Timpview. They're getting ready to demolish some of the rooms where a lot of the wiring is, and so they're needing to rerun those wires. That has also been sent to you because they needed to start last week in order to be done before they demolished. So those are the 5.
Okay. Can I ask a
Absolutely.
question? Okay, so what of these 5 was not already in our budget or not covered by a grant?
So the vape detection system is covered by the settlement, and that's about what the settlement was.
Okay.
So that is covered. The special ed was not originally in our budget, but there was a grant that was awarded.
Okay.
Also the ELD, it's coming out of your.
ESSER funds that Derek did give to me, also the department.
Correct.
And at-risk and Title III.
So it'll be kind of a blend of
all of which are
existing
in the budget.
already.
We're budgeted.
Correct. The cabling at Timpview, that is part of the construction, as is the parking lot. That is an increase to the construction budget, so that one will, it's not going to be done till later, so it's part of the FY24 budget that you'll approve tonight.
All right. Any other questions for Devin from anyone? Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Devin, it's you again.
It's me again.
For item number 8, fraud risk assessment
This
report.
is a requirement from the state auditor each year that we go through each of our areas and look and see what kind of controls we have in place to help mitigate risk, financial risk, and others. So we go through each of those. We've worked really hard the last few years, and we've got a really good staff. that has their duties separated, so there's multiple people who have eyes, so the risk of fraud is really minimal, which is what the state wants to see.
Okay, any questions for Devin on the fraud risk assessment?
And this is just an annual thing that we're required to file with the state auditor, so you'll see it every year.
So we do the assessment, correct?
We do the assessment, we just provide the information, there's nothing to vote on, it's just that they want us to be able to prove that we gave you the assessment, explained to you what it was, and then we submit it to the state auditor.
Okay.
Do we submit our training things to anyone, or we just do them?
Yeah, just the certificate
I
when
have,
you're
yeah.
finished. Yep.
Oh, we did it. We did it. We just didn't send it to
That,
you.
that is
Send
a
it to you.
huge accomplishment. If they come and ask if the state auditor has a really
Okay, so just
good-
email it to you.
Just email me your
Okay,
certificate, and it will be good.
I saved one of them.
I didn't know that. I thought that the risk auditor just knew I just included it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
that
log
would
in,
be
though, I went
lovely
back
if
and you
there
can
was.
download it.
Yep.
You can
Okay,
log
so
in
we'll
and
have
you
to
can
back.
go back and download them. But
And I
I'm
just
like
need one of them.
1985, I'm like, click, click. Just in case.
Cause I can't get back to that screen.
Yeah, so
I'll get it
the
too.
state auditor gets it, but our auditors will often
Probably not
review to
85.
make sure it's happening, so that's why we need this certificate.
That's what it is.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, perfect, thank you so much, Devin.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to item number 9, the policy review. And Keith, that's for you.
Okay, so we have 3 general sections of this one. One will be handled by Doug, and that is the second reading of the attendance policy. And he'll also briefly address some of the, are you prepared to address some of the changes to the procedure?
Sure.
Okay. And then we'll, when we're done with that, Anne Marie will speak of the labyrinth of policies that she's been working on. And then when she's finished, Jason will present on the personal leave adjustments in district policy. We're not asking for a second reading on that one. You may want to do one on the on the ones Anne Marie is doing. That's your discretion. But to treat that as a first, second reading option. But for Jason, this is the language that's been negotiated, and we're moving ahead with an approval on that tonight, because it won't change. No matter if we leave 30 days for input or not, it will not change. It's been negotiated, that's how it is. So Doug.
Okay, thank you. While this is no means a finish line, it's a benchmark of sorts in our ongoing conversation about attendance. And thank you, board members, as well as the public, who've given us a lot of feedback as it relates to that. The policy in front of you tonight to look at is a duplicate of what we saw 2 weeks ago, and that came out of a lot of work, particularly with our policy advisory committee that many of you participate in, that got that language hopefully spot on as it relates to what you'll be essentially doing in your governance with board policy. Again, the work that came through, and I got some emails from some of you. I benefited from spending almost maybe 2.5 hours with Wendy last week and getting her feedback that was also very meaningful for us to receive in the Student Family Services Department to work on the procedure and our flow chart. That's that learning tool associated with knowing how our tiered interventions and supports will be in place. Keith says maybe talk a little bit about some of the things we are addressing in the procedures. Again,
Maybe
those
you want to ask for feedback on the policy first before you go.
Yes, thank you, Keith. So let's just pause there again and just ask again. I know that there was limited to no feedback on the policy that would be in front of you to vote on tonight, but is there any additional comment or context? Because that's the critical matter, I know, for your vote tonight.
I do. On line 14,
How are you seeing the one?
well, the one I read the other day had a line on it, and it said, what is this? This does not look like the
It might be
page.
the procedure.
Yes.
Maybe the procedure has the lines out.
On the procedure.
Yeah.
It's line 14, it says, this research based on research, right? The research needs to be listed so that parents don't have to Google search it. They can immediately, oh, okay, this is from this journal, this author, this page number, and they don't have to Google search it. That needs to be listed.
Okay.
'Cause
And that's in the procedure, right?
No, that was in the policy,
the policy?
that I read. Whatever draft I
Yes,
read
that's correct.
the other
So
day.
in the second paragraph down, research supports the fact that attendance is crucial, so maybe just a
Okay.
footnote
Create-
with research.
Create a citation
to
there. Thank
look
you.
at the
No,
citation.
I
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so that language came from, again, our works in the committee, and I appreciate,
Yeah.
Terry, that's a very professional way to address that, is to give a citation as to where that study might be found.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
it probably, you can put a little footnote that says, okay, at the very bottom of the policy, here reads this.
Perfect, yeah. I think a lot of the policies are based in state code and other types of things, and we list those references below. I can see myself, Terry, wanting to put that in the references below as citing it there, and I'll just find a way to keynote, to kind of create a little footnote for that. Thank you, Terry. Anything else regarding the policy tonight? Because I can certainly work on it. I don't think it changes necessarily the substance of it. And I do have source documents that you're referring to. That statement just wasn't made as a cliche we use in education, though we do use that a lot. There is a number of journal evidence-based and in promising practices that there's research groups that have worked on attendance that I can cite that. So thank you so much, Terry. Anything else that you'd offer regarding the policy that you'd be voting on tonight?
Thank you for all your work. I
Oh,
know
no.
this has been a long.
Well, thank you. A lot of you have worked on it too. We are continuing our conversation tomorrow. We have an all-day training for Student Family Services tomorrow. You're welcome to come. In the morning, we'll be talking about the policy and procedure implementation with school teams, and we'll do a second session next week as well. If you can come the 14th or the 22nd, we'll be in the PDC. You're welcome to join us for the morning hours, like 8:30 to roughly 11:30 will be when we're talking about attendance policy. But we'll have the school teams there. They'll have an administrator. They'll have, say, their attendance secretaries and others who work a lot with actually putting this into place at the school. That we'll be spending a good 2.5 hours with them over the next week or two. In that, we'll, again, I say that to just introduce the idea that the procedures that I know that you've given me a lot of great feedback, and Terry, you did give me a lot of great detail last time that I'm working through on some of that content. That's still an ongoing work in progress. I'm even expecting, because some of the conversations that will come up tomorrow, as well as next week, administrators will continue to ask questions and give perspective that only school-based folks can give us. And while we've had a whole year of this kind of work, and we appreciate, again, board members as well as community members who took the opportunity during the 30-day read to give us feedback, we'll continue to refine this through the upcoming months and continue to work through the Executive Council to get these things approved and in place as we do with other procedures. So like I said, I know we're 90-something% like really firm in where we're going with everything from definitions to responsibilities and so forth. The feedback that many of you gave as far as making sure that we really represent our understanding of and respect for parents' rights through this whole process is a tone that we definitely will go through on the rewrites and make very certain that people don't see that this is a contentious thing. Our focus is communication and accountability as it relates to attendance policy. And that accountability is for everyone to do their part, right? To know where their kids are. Any of us would want that, right? But not to contend with someone whether they have the right to keep their kid out of school for what some would deem as a valid reason while others might contend. I don't think that vacation was appropriate. I don't think that doctor's appointment was appropriate. We don't find ourselves doing well to be in that contentious situation right now, currently where the status is with compulsory ed and the law right now in Utah. So that commentary aside, other questions or comments you have, Gina?
So I just wanted clarification. You said we're voting on this tonight. Is that correct?
Not the procedure, the policy.
Okay, and so when you're talking about meeting with people, it's more about procedure than policy. Okay.
Yeah, but it's just under that umbrella to know that
Right.
we've got your vote of approval to say this is direction, because you do have that kind of outline of what is in the procedure as part of your policy, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of say that overview of this is what the intent is, and then we get into the weeds with it with the procedures that we'll be training on and refining through the summer months.
Okay.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me? Thank you again. This is a type of policy that you don't want to have to write too many times in your career, right? And I don't say that bemoaning this journey that I've been on, but the idea that this is something that impacts almost every educator, every patron, every kid, every day, and sometimes multiple times. That's how far-reaching this is in terms of accountability, membership, accountability for students and their behaviors, and communication, relationship building. It's very extensive. So thank you for your support, and we hope to continue to move forward in a positive with the community.
Doug does not know I'm going to say this. You can thank me later. Because this has been such a hot topic and such a big project. It may be of interest to you 3 or 4 months into the school year to arrange a time for Doug to report back on how it's going and if there are major changes to the procedure in particular that he may be making adjustments. I'm sorry to do this to you, Doug.
Oh, no, I'm sure there's nothing else that we'll be talking about, so thank you. Let's pre-schedule that.
I'll be YouTubing in to see it.
No, I would think that sometime around October, November, as we'll be talking about enrollment and membership, and these things are all connected together. I would love to come back and give that report if the board would so desire. So thank you, Keith.
And this has to do with this, but also with, in general, I think this is going to come up with another policy discussion we're going to have. That's what's policy versus what's procedure, what belongs where. And if there is anything, particularly with the contentious stuff that we tend to hear about, or that's just really important to student achievement and student learning, it would be great, and maybe this is on us who are on the policy committee, to update the board on any changes to the policy, any significant changes to the policy, because we are held accountable for it regardless if it's procedure or policy. And Jennifer mentioned that nobody asks what's the procedure, they all ask what's the policy. And so I think it's important for us, and I would love to hear from Doug again because this one is so
far-reaching.
Yeah, it's far-reaching. But I would say, and some of this is on us, Lisa and Jennifer's not here, but we need to. I would appreciate if we could all work together to update the board on any big changes to procedure as well, because we're responsible for that, regardless of who puts it in place. So,
no, thank you.
Thank you.
One last closing comment I'll make is that the truancy amendments, which is a part of R277-608 or something like that, I'm sorry that I know that, but it's something that is continually being re-looked at. In fact, there was just even in the 11th hour, a former colleague of mine, Dan Johnson from up the Cache Valley Way, was pushing for some acknowledgement of chronic absenteeism. We kind of talked about that in an earlier conversation. This just isn't about truancy. The idea that kids are missing enough school, it's impacting them educationally, is where I see the direction of attendance conversations really going. Let's confer and talk about, while you're exercising your rights to excuse your kids, what's the impact it's having on their learning? And as I think it was well said by Melanie earlier, and what's it doing upon the work expectations of teachers to have to continually recreate learning opportunities that students aren't present at. So it is a real dynamic conversation that I would expect that when this update for this latest truancy or absentee amendments come out, we might find ourselves needing to update this. And probably in upcoming legislative sessions, it'll be an ongoing thing that we'll need to fine-tune this policy. But we've done a lot of heavy lifting of setting ourselves up to be able to refine as opposed to have to completely rewrite and hash this out in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Emery.
Hey there, I get to talk to you about the somewhat confusing string of changes in the 4000 series. And before we get into specifics, maybe I can just background this. Essentially, there are not a lot of changes to this 4000 series, the string of them. This decision came through conversation in the policy committee, and the recommendation was for a document that Assistant Superintendent Todd has been working on, related to political symbols in the classroom environment and what is the space for in a classroom. And there was some agreement that it might best be in the 4000 series where we're talking about curriculum and things. So essentially what was done, we had 2 policies there. We had 4020, and that outlined, it gave a general understanding of our curricular commitment, and then it talked about acquiring curriculum. We felt like that first section of 4020 was appropriate as a general header for all things curriculum. So we left that there, and then the P1 you have, so the new 4020 P1 is that procedure
that you've been exposed to, you've seen from, again, Dr. McKee, having to do with those political symbols, as well as classroom environment, and how we hold and maintain, you can read it, but it's understanding that individuals have rights of personal expression on their personal beings, and we have a responsibility to use the space in a classroom not for personal causes, but for curriculum and supporting learning. So we essentially just took 40-20 and split it in two, kept the general section there, added that new as a procedure, that new section. Then we made the second section of 40-20, 40-21. And so that one now is...
Which is a new categorization?
It is a new, well, it's a shifting of numbers.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, so we had an old 40-21, but the new 40-21 would be the second half, curriculum acquisition of 40-20. Then
I only ask that because I'm in all the meetings and I can't keep it straight.
Yeah. We split the one and shifted everything down. So 40-20 Part B is now 40-21, and all the same procedures would come accompanying it. There aren't changes in those really. And then our prior policy 40-21 is the new library acquisition and release of materials in there that you approved last year. So that's just shifted to renumbering 40-22. You will see that a couple of sections of policy changed. They were very minor. For instance, in that library materials review committee policy, old 40-21, new 40-22, that the state ended up, different than they had planned, not requiring an internal or a system statewide where you would register all the books that had been petitioned. And so I took that part out, although they have asked for that in a different way. In any case, that one, and then I found something that had been problematic. We previously on that committee had 10 members, which allows for a split vote. So I just changed that to 9 members so that we could have a natural section there. Does that give you an overall sense of... No, I apologize.
No, I wasn't. I was trying to understand it myself, so you did it much more clearly than I did.
Do you have any feedback for me?
I do, regarding the procedure, which I know isn't what we're going to vote on, but first just thank you, because I love the idea that, our job as a public school is to take the state standards that get passed and to support those in our learning environments. And I really feel like the whole experience when you walk into a school is part of your compulsory learning environment. So I liked having this as a procedure. I had just feedback on the language of that procedure, which I don't know if that's appropriate to read here, but my thought was just about how the procedure is introduced. And this is just maybe a suggestion around tone, really, for that. So I was thinking we could just set up the vision of why we have this. Like, classrooms and offices are part of the K-12 compulsory learning environment, and as such, the state standards that apply to our curriculum also apply to our classroom environments, displays, and materials. And then we can go into some of those other specifics, but I just, rather than starting with the board owns your classroom, and so we get to tell you what you can and can't do, which I just think really it's this vision. This is why we care. It's not because we want to make sure in terms of, at least for me, in terms of ownership of the space. It's just an acknowledgement of the power of the space for the learners. And so the whole space is meant to really support the learning of these standards that we're
I like that language.
Anyway, so I don't know if that's interesting. I'll send it to you in an email if you're interested, or I think I already did.
I think I've got it.
Yeah.
Superintendent, what do you think where do you think we go from here on procedure language?
I mean, just like what Doug talked about, we can make any more adjustments to the procedure, and that can happen. We've got, at least in my time here, we've got at least one more council meeting. We can do that there, or when Wendy takes over, it can be done at that time. I think it's wise to get it done relatively soon.
Yeah. So
well, you don't have to take. It's just a suggestion. I mean, it's
I would
part
like
of
to
a
second, I would like to
conversation.
second the suggestion. I do like that.
Would it be appropriate for us then, since you're just voting on policies tonight,
Yeah.
if the policies are okay, we could maybe in our next policy meeting where we have some representation, look through that procedure again, consider that language, and then if everyone is okay then, we could enact it then?
I think the only question is, you want to have it in place for training in August for the principals. I think you want to go through that with them at that time, the procedure, as well as the policy. So I don't know that we're going to have another policy review committee meeting before that.
I thought we did on the final Monday of this
I
month.
know I won't.
Oh, okay.
But, I don't know that that's going to happen in the month of June.
Okay. I look to you, Rebecca, too. I know we're in, this is that area of who owns procedure, and it's not, it's not
That's what I'm reading.
terribly certain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what you're suggesting is not wildly off what we currently have, and
Yeah.
as you say, it is more of a tone of language. I look to direction from you two on how to proceed here. Or three.
Let's put it on the upcoming agenda for council and see what we can do to clean it up, and then also bring it back in the August policy review committee just to see if there's any tweaks that are required. Because even if we do training on it in August,
we can have a draft.
We'll probably get a little feedback at that point anyway. So there could be, as you know, the cool thing about procedures is we can adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
You know, just a formal council meeting to do that, and then again, notify the board after the fact.
It is a question to ask, I guess, the board here, as we've discussed this at policy meeting in terms of what goes into policy and what goes into procedure. This is a topic that, you know, there could be an argument for it either way, and so if you have strong feelings, I think it would be great to hear those. The idea was that this supports this whole idea of our curriculum and how our curriculum is chosen by the state standards, et cetera, but if anyone here feels like this should be a policy instead of a procedure, I think that's great to hear.
That's what I was going to say was we need to figure this out as a board, because Jennifer has mentioned previously, and I agree with her to some extent, that sometimes I feel like the actual policy is kind of fluffy. Like, we believe this, and this is our feeling as a board, which is great. But the actual policy is usually in procedure, and once it's not in the policy anymore, then we kind of lose track of it, and so we as a board need to figure out with the superintendent, which is kind of tricky now because we have two. We have. No, you're good. We're happy to have you. But and I don't know what the appropriate place for that is. Is that, do we just approve this and then have the discussion? Do we have the discussion and then approve this? Because I know that this does need to be in place. Like as Keith has said, I agree. Our principals need to have this in place so that they can have these conversations in the fall. So when do we have our discussion? It will affect this, but it will also affect other policies as well.
Right. I mean, we can put it on, we can have this discussion as soon as we can get it on an agenda, right? So I don't mind making this a priority on a future agenda. I'm not sure on June 27th. We already have quite a few things for June 27th. So I'm not sure we can get it into June 27th. I need to remember first what we already kind of have zeroed in on for that. And if it's a big enough priority, we can shift some stuff off if we need to and do it on the 27th.
I think it's if you guys are comfortable with this being a procedure. I am, truthfully, I actually think that makes a lot of sense in this context, but not in every context. So it seems like a separate discussion than just the specific, but in terms of this specific one, if someone here is like, why is this not in the language of the policy, I would say, please voice that now so that we, like, then that makes it more.
I have concerns that it's not in the policy. I've looked at a few other districts, it's all in policy, none of it's in procedure.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we are on par with what other people are doing. I don't know if
I don't know that needs to be your standard, honestly, because the way that we do it in Utah, for example, having come from another state, is very cumbersome. It means that the board has to get involved in the wordsmithing of all of the implementation language as opposed to the aspirational language. That's one of the reasons why, as you said, the policies are generally a little fluffier, but they don't get into the weeds of the management of the district. And the management of the district is usually how we implement the policy, the steps that the staff takes to implement the goals of the procedure, of the policy. So those are the nuts and bolts of what the policy means. We can, normally when we present a new policy to you, we present a draft of the procedure as well. It's been a long time since we presented you much in the way of policies, but the goal is to make sure that you're aware of the procedures. That may change with the change of leadership, it may change with the change of board priorities, but my warning to you, I'm the oldest guy in the room and I know what I'm talking about here, you will get bogged down like crazy. So you've got to be careful about how much of this you take on. So that's just a caution. I'm not saying don't, I'm just saying beware.
Well, and I'm not saying I want to take on any, I have plenty to do. I don't want to take on any more, but I do believe that policy is it's one of the two main things that two or three, I guess I should say, main things that we are tasked with. And I don't necessarily disagree that we should just pass this today, but I do have some concerns that this is in a procedure and not a policy, but we are still responsible for it, but we have no control, very little control over it, is my thing. And I don't want to get bogged down in the things, but this is one of the things that is fiery right now.
So, Gina, my suggestion might be then on that is, perhaps you pass it the way it is, and then come back at a future policy advisory committee meeting and explore ways to move it into the policy. And you could always come back with a revised policy on this one. I mean, the cool thing is, at some point we have the language in place, so we can move forward with that, regardless of the structure of it. That might be the compromise position that would work.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Well, and just two comments. I mean, delaying it until we have the conversation is tricky, because the conversation sometimes takes a long time.
Yeah.
But two, though, I just want to just emphasize one thing that you're saying that I feel like is important too, is our policies protect us legally in a lot of ways, and as a board we have to think about liability a lot, and it's important for us to be really solid in our policies. So if they are a little too fluffy, then that can pose a problem with legal concerns, or so I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you and Jennifer are saying, and I think maybe we need to look at it, but I'm not sure that we want to start delaying things until we have the conversation, because I'm afraid if we start delaying until the conversation happens, then we're going to really put ourselves behind.
Backing what you just said, I'm not on the policy committee, so when we write these, does one of our lawyers look at each of these before?
Not all the time. This particular one, the procedure has been looked at, and I don't know if the policy itself has been, but it's gone through several iterations with the attorney.
But see, that tells me something right there, that the procedure was looked at, right, and not the policy.
Well, I would have to ask Jason, do you know, Todd, do you know if John looked at the policy specifically?
No, policy 4020 in any iteration has not been looked at.
And I'm okay moving forward with this specific one. I'm comfortable with the procedure. I just don't know where it belongs. I'm comfortable moving on, especially because we just need to have, I think we need to have the larger conversation, and we can move it, and I think I'm okay with that. And I think they do need things in place. The schools need things in place.
Can we do a first reading on the 4,000 series changes, or do we need to vote on those too?
You can treat it as a first reading if you want to, because the second reading would still come in. I mean, we could, I'd say you, new district leadership, could present this as, here's a policy in draft form, here's the procedure therefore in draft form, because the procedure's not real until the policy's passed.
Okay.
And just do the training based on this, assuming that it moves forward in a fairly close semblance of what we have right now.
I don't feel comfortable voting for this tonight. There's too many changes. It needs to be put on the website so the public has an opportunity to read it, because this is a lot.
So you certainly can
and
do that.
I'm fine doing having this be a first reading. I mean, it seems like we're moving towards that anyways with most of the policies we look at, and it is nice to have a lot more time to think over and give feedback on.
So would we also put this procedure though up for the public to look at?
That's the question.
Sure, Why not?
I think
Yeah,
we
I think
should. I mean,
so.
because I think if I guess as me, if I have some concerns about the procedure, but it's not really under, doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, right, but it's not under my.
It matters to you as a citizen and a
Sure.
parent, right?
Yeah.
But as a board member,
Board
our
member is
official
more in the
approval is
policies
just, yeah.
where.
I want to go back to answer a question that you asked, Rebecca. Just because we haven't had an attorney look at it doesn't mean that it's not legitimate language. I just handed to Wendy today something that came in the mail, which is sample policies that are issued by Utah School Boards Association. We get that every year. These policies, virtually every policy you have in the policy handbook online is rooted in those policies. So we use their approved language already.
Got it.
And so it's already been vetted indirectly, not directly by an attorney.
Okay.
So we oftentimes have a USBE board model policy to go from and a your association, School Boards Association model policy, and they're distinct.
So that
they're-
might be good for us to know when we're looking at new stuff, like
Yeah.
where the roots of this
Based
policy
on-
comes from, because that may be helpful
Mhm.
for us in
You-
feeling more confident in it.
We have a fantastic policy institute here in Utah, the Kim Gardner at University of Utah, and you might benefit from we might hear from them about what is the purpose of the policy versus a procedure, and ground ourselves in that a bit more so we all understand collectively what might be the best route.
Can I ask one question
Of
about
course.
policy?
Yes.
Just for my own understanding. So on line 22, it says mathematics, English language, arts, and science will have particular emphasis in curriculum development. So is social studies not part of that?
Social studies has been, in fact, thus far, all of the content areas that the state board produces standards for are in our curriculum cycle. I think it does beg the question, we've talked about curriculum usage and funds. I think there is a real question we need to say, are we going to support all of these at the same levels? And I look forward to having more conversations with Wendy and having the board consider. So I think that was put in there because those are our areas that the state tests in, and we wanted to ensure that we had those done and done well. And that's what we did very initially before the state even had their rotation process. We made sure those were in place.
Okay.
Okay, so on this policy, I think we've all agreed we'll make it a first reading, and so we're not going to vote on that tonight. We'll go ahead and, okay.
And then put it on the website, was that what we decided,
And then
including the
we
procedure?
Put this on the
August first meeting.
First August.
Okay.
LGBTQ advisory committee should look at this procedure. Because I think without saying it, I guess my concern is that what problem are we addressing here with this? Is there something specific, or is it general, like it attests to? And I think I want to be mindful of communities that are marginalized and do have a hard time feeling safe, and then when this is vague a little bit, I don't think that adds to, I think that only contributes to that, because are we having a lot of problems with political flags? Like a presidential flag? I mean, is that, maybe we do, I don't know.
Is it one flag that we're having a problem
Yes.
with, is what you're asking?
Yes, that we're addressing, and we're not saying that per se, but it's unwritten, and I don't want that to further marginalize a community that's already marginalized. And I know it's hard, and I know there's a lot of heated feelings and beliefs around it, but strive to be warm, welcoming, and inviting. And I guess some things are political to some, but to others, they're warm, welcoming, and inviting. So but I see that this is in procedure, not policy, so I don't. Those are my concerns.
Just going along with that, something that just went through my head is just when we decorate like when I was decorating my classroom, when I was a teacher, like my cohort also was a big Denver Broncos fan, so she had Denver Broncos stuff all over, but it didn't have anything to do with math. Would that be appropriate? These are the questions that I'm
Right, like on your
coming-
desk, but not
on my
on the
desk,
wall.
but I mean, she had a great big
Right.
huge flag of the Denver Broncos, she was a huge fan of them, but it had nothing to do with math. I mean, with that.
As a Pats fan, that would offend me deeply.
Yeah, me too, actually. I think I could learn in that
But no, I think
regard,
that's a good
but
question.
but that is the point,
I'd like to hear,
right?
I'd like to hear the answer to that. I
Yeah.
should know this, I'm on the policy committee, but.
So anyway, that's just something that came up in my
Yeah.
head while I was reading this policy.
Yeah, there is a balance, and I think
Yeah.
the language in there tries to point to that balance of there is some personal space designated
Yeah,
for
I
individuals and
appreciate
expression, and at the same time, the primary environment of a classroom is in service of students. And you might say entertainment is part of service to students. Putting up a Halloween decoration might be, that's not content related, but it might be appropriate. So I appreciate the questions you're asking, and we're happy to look at this more and hear the feedback that you hear.
Okay. Thank you so much, Emery. All right, and our last one, Jason.
Thank you. This last policy that you have in front of you is policy 5400. It was a part of the negotiations this year. What we chose to do as a school district was change around our leave practices. So in the past, we've had both PTO leave and personal leave. PTO leave is fully paid, but there were qualifying reasons you could take PTO. Personal leave was you could take it for any reason, but you had a dock in pay for taking those days. To move kind of in line with more of industry standards and to be more supportive of our teachers, we got rid of personal leave altogether in the policy, and we moved the PTO days to 8 days specifically this year, and we removed all the qualifying reasons, so employees can use them without having to have a specific reason to use them. That is the majority of the updates in there. We did also change a few language, things like it used to say deputy superintendent. We changed that to HR director because we have multiple people could help that person rather than just one. So.
Okay. Any questions for Jason on this?
I do. Has this been sent to all employees or just union leadership?
So this policy specifically has been run through with the negotiation process. So the people that they shared it with, they could have sent it, but I'm not in control of that. They could have sent it farther than that, but they have all seen it.
Okay. Is it possible to send it to every employee so they know what's going on?
After it's approved, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, this will probably be one of the training items in August with the principals as well.
It will be, yes, absolutely.
Any other questions for Jason? Okay, thank you. We will take a vote on that tonight, so be ready for that. Okay, we are on to item number 10, and we are officially 25 minutes behind. So let's see, Todd, you are coming up to give us the 18990 report.
Yes, every year we ask the board to approve the calendar for the schools to ensure that we're meeting the state standards for 18990. The schools have worked hard this year to make sure that they're in line. Oftentimes it requires them to adjust their bell schedules a little bit. I will say for the secondary schools, they're right at the line for the minimum expectation. A lot of that is due to the Friday early outs. A couple of years ago, we had aligned ourselves in the secondary with the elementary early out day to help with busing and with families. In doing so, though, it shortens our instructional time quite a bit, so they're just barely meeting that threshold. The one school that is struggling the most due to construction is Timpview, obviously, but they've made some adjustments as well.
And for the elementary, it's just the opposite, with kind of adjusting for the secondary folks. It actually has extended our day just a little bit more, so you'll notice that our 18990, we're actually well above on the amount of hours that we are required to be in session, which is okay because it really does give us more time in front of the students. So.
All right, any questions for Todd or Alex?
Thank you, and thank you to all the principals who are helping put this all together.
They love doing it every year. So just to be clear here, we would be out of compliance if we were below 990 hours, correct? But we are not out of compliance.
We are not. We are not. And we're meeting the early out days as well. I don't know if you heard back, that was the concern, but we're meeting those expectations as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Moving on to item number 11, Anne Marie with the Sex Education Committee member review.
Thanks again. So, Utah law defines quite in a lot of detail sex education in the health curriculum, in the health standards for us. One of the things they require is that each district or LEA have a sex education curriculum materials review committee. The purpose of this committee is to meet and vet essentially any potential curricula or speakers that might want to come in under the realm of maturation and or sex education. So that this committee every year by the board's direction has a rotation of schools, and it's made of parents and of employees, and the board is asked to approve the members themselves each year, and the new requirement is that that's done before the coming year. So I hope these suggestions came from our principals. I suggest that they work with their PTAs and or their school community councils in getting these volunteers, and I'm happy to present them to you and grateful for their willingness to participate.
Okay. Any questions for Anne Marie on this? Thank you so much, Anne Marie. All right, item number 12, land trust plans, and that's for Alex Judd.
Okay, so you guys have all given your feedback to the principals in regards to the land trust plans, and so we need your approval in moving forward so that this is officially approved by the board.
Okay, any questions there? No? Perfect.
Thank you for their feedback. They've made the adjustments in their plans, and we'll move forward for next year. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
And that's one that does have to be approved in the...
That'll be approved in the business meeting tonight. Okay, perfect. Man, we have really caught up. We're only 10 minutes behind now. We're doing great. All right, item number 13, collective bargaining agreements, and that's for Jason again.
All right, thank you. So we did go through the process this year with each of our collective bargaining units. It was very positive. We saw what the legislative body did for the teachers with the amount that specifically was earmarked for them, and then our addition to that was the 5.5%. Then we ended with 7.5% increase to our classified employees and 6.5% for our admin group. So any questions on the negotiated agreements?
The total for, I don't think you just stated this out loud, but the total for the teachers will be 15.9, and we include what the state is giving plus what we've done, right?
Absolutely, yeah, 15.9%.
Okay, any comments or questions from the board? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jason.
You bet.
And that's why you're not sitting down, because you're next again.
You bet.
For the 23-24 calendar discussion.
Thank you again for this opportunity. So we, in negotiations with our teachers, they had asked for a couple of no work days, and so those days have been entered into the calendar for January 12th and March 15th. The great thing about this is that we had not included the common comp days in the original calendar, so by putting those in and taking out these 2 days, we don't have to change the start date of the calendar or the end date of the calendar, and all holidays or breaks in the calendar stay the same. So the only changes to the calendar would be those 2 days off that the teachers have requested in their negotiation process.
Jason, I should know the answer to this question, but for 2 42-day employees, how do those 2 non-work days affect them? Are they still work days?
They are still work days.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't have enough. We'd start having to impact holidays if we took those off. So they're still work days for
Not that it
242.
matters to me, but,
You can call me on that day. I'll be working.
I'll check on it.
So for the public, 242 is what?
So there are different categories of work calendars for employees in the school district. Administration typically works a 242-day calendar. And so their calendar is the largest as far as number of work days for the school year. We have a variety of calendars that go all the way down to a 178. So a 178, I'm trying to remember who owns that, but transportation, thank you. But we have calendars all the way in between the 178 and the 242, depending on the need for the employee as far as what work we need to accomplish.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions from the board for Jason regarding the calendar? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we'll now hear from Keith Morey from the City Development Services, and he will address us on an RDA.
Where would you like me?
Hi, welcome, Keith. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you very much. I haven't had the chance to meet with all of you in person. My name is Keith Morey. I was hired as the Economic Development Director for Provo City in January of 2020, and then was made the Assistant Director of Development Services for that department, so I kind of do both. And with David Walter leaving, I've assumed redevelopment accountability too. So my job title is getting longer and my salary is staying the same, as is typical in government work or public service. I'm going to turn most of the time over to Brighton Homes to make this presentation. I think you have a lot of context, and really we want to make sure we just answer your questions. But I'll just tell you from my perspective, when I was hired in 2020, the mayor gave me a couple of priorities to focus on, and one of them was the old Plumtree Plaza. This was a piece of property that had become blighted and was no longer really contributing in the way that we wanted it to our community. And so we started working aggressively to try to do that. There had been a project area that we had worked with you to create, but the developers had not been able to perform on that, and we got fortunate enough when Brighton Homes acquired the property and had a vision and was able to get that started. From my perspective, they have been the kind of developer partner that we want. They've heard our concerns and our comments about what we value and what's meaningful in our community, and they've tried to bring that to the project in a way that I think is very beneficial. But there's been a lot of changes in the market that have made their ability to stay involved in the project a little bit difficult. And I think what they're asking you tonight is, because they acquired the property sometime after we put this agreement into place, they're wanting the calendar to shift to appropriately reflect when they came on board with the project, so that they're able to capitalize on the majority of the increased value that they're going to create. I think the other concern that they have is, because of some of these rising costs, it's potentially difficult for them to stay engaged with the project, that there may be the potential that they have to sell off parts of it if they don't get some more help from us. That's meaningful to me because there are a lot of developers that I think that we would all be happy to see move down the road. I don't think this is one of them. I think these are good partners that have heard what you've said, that are adding value in a way that I think improves the school district, improves the city, and improves the tax base that we need to do our business. So we would recommend and ask you to support us. I think it's a joint partnership that we'll both benefit from, and I'll let Sean make a couple of comments, then we're happy to answer whatever questions you might like.
Thank you for letting me come take up a few more minutes of your time. I'll kind of go through some of this information rather quickly since you've seen it before. I know it's been a couple months, but this again is the Plumtree Shopping Center that we've changed to the River's Edge on University project. If you want to go to the next slide, the big thing that I'm trying to point out with some of these initial slides is the state of the project when we took it over and kind of where we are today. As Keith mentioned, we bought it from a previous developer that had negotiated the original TIF with you, and that developer bought it I think around 2016, and the property just kind of sat until we took ownership in 2021. So this is what it looked like in March of 2021, and then you can go to the next slide. And this is what it looked like in March of 2023, and if you've been there recently, it's changed quite a bit even since this photo was taken. So we're not the kind of developer that will sit on anything for too long. We like to see progress being made, and we've really enjoyed our partnership with Provo City here. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. So this is the site plan that we've got right now, and what it consists of is a mixture of residential and commercial uses. We found that we feel we've got a good mix of the two to make a thriving live, work, play environment, which is kind of our goal for the site. So we've got townhomes, which are slightly larger units, 3-bedroom units, and then we've got stacked flats that are more heavy on the 1-bedroom units. Then we've got a mixture of office with the Kiln co-working building coming in, and then some new food and retail buildings that we're working on. Out of these pads, we've got about half of our commercial pads in some process of construction at the moment. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. This is just a quick timeline of how the project has moved since we took ownership of it. We began our demolition the same month. We had Mayor Kafusi out there in an excavator taking a swipe at the shopco. It was kind of fun. And then from there, we were able to, because it was a priority with Provo City, we were able to get the plans approved very quickly, and it's been moving ever since. You can go to the next slide. Again, we really enjoy working with Provo City. It's been a great experience. Having worked with cities all up and down the Wasatch Front, I really do enjoy working with Provo City. And Brighton Homes in general wants to have a permanent presence here. One of the buildings that we're building there is our office building. I actually moved down to Provo City for this purpose. So I've laid down roots here. I've got kids in the school district, and I really enjoy it here. And with that, we want to invest in this community, and we've done our best to do that so far. So we're a local developer. Our main office is in North Salt Lake. That's another difference between us and the previous developer. They were out-of-state developer. And as we look towards the partnership with Provo City, there's a few things that we would like to propose doing. We think it could be beneficial for us to hire a high school student within the Provo School District each semester as an internship role, and help foster some of the talent that's coming out of the area. The co-working building Kiln that we've got coming in there is going to be a great asset for the community, and I believe that the school district, they really focus on fostering this environment for startups and young entrepreneurs, and they know that in order to foster that environment, they need to work with students. And so in addition to working with BYU, they've agreed to do an event this fall with the school district and high school students to introduce them to young entrepreneurs in the area, and help them get excited in the tech industry. And so within the housing, we've got a decent amount of housing. I know one of the concerns was it adding to the student population in the area. Based on our interest that we've had so far, we don't see that being an issue. Most of our interest has been young married couples or young professionals so far. We haven't seen really many that have, definitely not any that have grade school or above age children. So far, we're looking at putting an investment of over $150 million into the center. So this is a big project for us. We've really got a lot of our money tied up in this, along with our investors. So, you can go to the next slide. There have been difficulties that we've run into, though. As Keith mentioned, there's been kind of this perfect storm. We had the COVID market, which caused problems with the construction costs. I'm sure, as you guys have seen with your school projects that you've got going on, construction costs skyrocketed, and then immediately after that we had our interest rates skyrocket. And between the two things, it's really made it difficult in the commercial world. The residential world has had difficulties as well, but rents have been able to keep up a little bit better than the commercial leases have. And so we're seeing a drop an increase in vacancy rates in the market, especially in the commercial market. And so that has been kind of scaring the banks, and they are in turn asking for more money to start new buildings, which kind of brings us to the position that we're in. Our investors and the banks that we're working with are kind of have us at a standstill until we can find a solution to this problem. And one of the solutions that's been identified to help us get this up and going again is the partnership with the redevelopment agency. So currently we've invested $35 million. On top of that, we have $115 million in debt on the property. Like I mentioned, we've seen our the required financing drop quite a bit. So the TIF, the original TIF agreement, was intended to offset some development costs associated with an off-site sewer improvement. This was what was negotiated under the previous developer. And so under the new request, we're hoping to bring it into more of a typical arrangement with the TIF agreement. You can go to the next slide. This slide is just meant to illustrate the increases that we've had, just to kind of put it into real numbers so that you can see. Across the board, it's been about a 17-18% increase that we've seen in our construction costs, and that doesn't take into account the additional money that the banks are requiring us to put in. You can go to the next slide. So this is our request. Again, originally it had been negotiated for a improvement of off-site sewer. With the change of ownership, we would like to initially adjust the timeline, which originally started in 2021, adjust it to commencing in 2025, just because of the construction timelines that we're under versus what the previous developer was planning on. And the second one is to increase the term from a 6 to a 12-year and increase the maximum amount of the TIF to $7 million. And from my understanding, and Keith can correct me if I'm wrong, this puts us more in the typical range of what the typical TIFs the city does. This would allow Brighton to recoup some of those costs and allow the investors to feel a little more comfortable moving forward rather than tabling or looking at selling to other developers down the road. So trying to put that into help you guys understand where it would have been under the previous development. The average yearly income before we started development was about $170,000 would have been your portion that was coming to you. The average over the 12-year, if you agree to the proposed terms above, your increase would still be higher than the original amount of just under $300,000, and then that would increase substantially after the 12-year period. You can go to the next slide. Oh, this one was a repeat. You can go to the last one. So, do you guys have any questions? Any questions that I can answer for you?
So normally on these agreements, it feels like we typically have a term of like 15 years or a certain amount, but here I only see just 12 years. Is that what we're going with on this one, is just 12 years?
The $7 million is the amount.
Or the $7 million, okay.
Yeah.
So if we hit that before year 12, then we're done, right? It's 12 years or $7 million, okay.
So the amount before...
Or if you don't hit it after 12 years, they don't get the $7 million. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you get 12 years and they're not at $7 million, they're done too.
Right, so those are both the limit. Okay, understood.
Yeah, the original amount I believe was about 1.8 million.
Okay, and then one more question, sorry if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So the original agreement commenced in 2021, so we're technically already under the terms of that original one, or have been for a year or two, correct?
Correct. though it hasn't really been implemented, like, we haven't gotten any money from it.
I don't think it was
so.
ever, like.
It wasn't triggered by
Yeah,
the-
triggered.
It was never triggered, so we never actually, so we're not like losing 2 years, right? Okay, because that was one of my concerns, is this really like 15 after all, because we've technically started in 21, right, and, or however many, 16 years. So it was never triggered, so really, it never.
We're not getting any money.
There's.
now.
Right. I mean, we're not like losing out on time or money because it technically started in 21 and we're extending the time, correct?
Right, yeah, the trigger was never pulled to get it started initially.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. As someone who doesn't, I'm new to all of this, so the reason you're saying 2020 is a 5 instead of 2023 or 24 is because that's when you anticipate being completed with.
That's when we expect to be about 80 to 90% built out, and so that allows us to capture the increased tax
increase
value,
in value.
the benefits of the money that we're putting in.
On like the commercial space, is there concerns about those remaining vacant once they're done, just because there's a slowdown in the need for commercial space? And how does that affect value, I guess, on the property going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, our goal is the same as yours, to fill them up as fast as we can, because if they're sitting there vacant, we've got debt on them, and so we're paying interest on them. So it is a little more complicated with the commercial side, that we're kind of waiting for the tenants to come to us, and we're always negotiating with them, but there is a variable there of the market. So
That's a risk any developer takes, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Do you guys get agreements ahead of time on that commercial space? I mean, it looked like on your map you already had some pieces
Yeah,
put in here, like, I mean, Dirty Bill, or Dirty Bird. Is
Dirty
that
Bird, yeah.
Dirty Bird, and something in pink that's really unreadable.
Ginger Street.
There you go.
Yeah, so we do. It's actually, and that's the typical way that it works, is you sign a lease so you know who's coming, and then you build the building for them. And normally that's the best way to do it. That way has not been the best way recently, because we negotiate the lease with Wags Capital, who owns those two concepts. And then between when we negotiate the lease and once we negotiate the lease, we start our design, and then we start building, and then between that time, construction costs have gone up 15%, and our returns aren't what we thought they were going to be. But normally that would be the way. We would like to build spec if we can. It just kind of depends on the banks and how they're feeling about the market.
Okay. Any other questions?
I can just say, the 3 of us sat on the finance committee and met with Keith and had a presentation, and I think it's appropriate to say it here, but we 3 agreed, along with Derek, that this is not a high-risk thing for us to take on.
Right, that was the next thing I wanted to point out, was that Derek did send us an email recommending that we go ahead with it.
He said that, I went back and looked, the Excel sheet that had the taxes, if you guys remember, it's been the beginning of May since he sent it, but there was that Excel file, and it had the total school increments of how much we would get over the years. And so basically, since it hasn't been triggered, we're getting 0. So anything above 0 is yay.
Yeah.
And there's not really a high impact to our system from this. So.
Did you guys happen to remember from that meeting, we have caps on what we're allowed to do?
We're
How close
still
are we
under
to our
it.
cap?
We're
We're still
under
under,
it.
we don't risk like having to reject other projects because, okay.
No, because when Keith said in the meeting that other projects haven't been triggered yet.
Yeah.
So.
But even if they were all triggered, you're still okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Let's see how we're doing on our time. 6:30. Wow, we're 4 minutes ahead.
You're
This
welcome.
is incredible. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right. We need to have a quick discussion here on secondary school assignments. Last year in June, we made assignments. we all kept our elementaries, but then we assigned 2 board members to each secondary school. I was actually on the plane coming home from DC with Dixon last year. I missed this discussion last year and just came home to find out the schools I would assign to. So I haven't actually ever participated in this discussion, and now we're opposite with Jennifer gone. But we need to discuss, well, we need to decide, I don't know if it was decided last year that we switch on a yearly basis. I would like to throw out the idea of switching every 2, possibly. Was it 2? I don't know what was decided. A year seems short. And getting to know your schools and your principals and everything, you know, like it feels like 2 years makes sense since everything else with our assignments rotates on a 2-year basis. So I would like to throw that out there, that we stick with what we've got right now for another year. But I'm happy to, and open to anything anyone prefers if you want to do something different.
No, that's what I wanted to know, but
I thought it was
I don't
2 years.
You thought it was 2 years. Okay.
I thought it was only 1 year, so that's why I was like, okay, I guess we're.
It makes sense to go for me that we do it every 2 years.
And it is off, since we do it in June, like we make most of our assignments in January, so it is kind of off schedule in that regard. So then we do get some overlap with, like, when new board members come in, and then you do an assignment for a year and a half instead of 2, but I don't know, how does everybody feel about a 2-year gig?
Works for me. I'm fine with independence and Provo High. I like
We love independence or maker.
Yeah. Well, and I love any assignment too, right?
So
I mean, I
cool.
would be happy
Such
with
a
any
good
assignment, I
school.
think, but
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to stick with something for a little while and have some kind of some history
Kind
there.
of create some relationships.
Yeah, and some relationship, right. So is everyone okay with keeping our current assignments and then making a note of in next June rotating?
I would just ask if there's any need to redistribute in terms of the elementary schools, just because is anyone feeling overburdened versus someone who might have more bandwidth? That's all. I'm not asking for more work. I'm just making sure if someone feels that way, they know they can say it.
So I am one of the ones that, we've moved all the schools out of my area, which is a whole different story. But I would be fine picking up someone else's school, but I'm not elected, and I think it might be difficult if I'm representing a school in Terry's area and they don't elect me. I don't know.
Yeah. You have a lot of schools. That's how
yeah,
are you doing with that?
But Thomas is going to be in kindergarten next year, which means I'll have more time. All day kindergarten. Yoo-hoo! I'm all happy.
I mean, is anyone feeling overburdened with how many schools they have? I guess we should ask that first. I'm happy.
Me, I only got 1.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's stick with our schools in our areas then, our elementary schools
Well,
in our areas.
I was going to say, isn't your daughter going to start Provo High, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though you live on the east side, the kids do go into the west side school. But I don't.
Well, and that, I mean, if you're okay with where you're at right now,
Yeah.
we can address that in, if we're okay with the 2 years, we can address that in June if you feel like that's something you'd be interested in.
Okay, yeah, I'm good, and I think it's healthy too to have, kind of get a feel for everything going on in the district.
Okay, so then I think the consensus is to stick with what we've got. Sound good? Okay, perfect. All right, consent calendar. Let's go there.
I was going to be nice and not ask any questions because Derek's not here.
Okay, well, I'm going
were
to.
or you are?
I cannot.
Devin was
I'm like,
looking forward
Devin's
to it.
ready.
Bring it on.
And I read it and I was like, you know what? There's not too much to ask Devin.
No, you can ask
I'll
me.
wait until Derek comes back.
Okay. So I'm fine answering any questions.
I will just
You
go ahead and pose the
did because you
question.
you answered my last time about the
gas.
Yeah, the gas bill, because that was
So,
very
I mean,
odd
generally,
to
we
me.
know the details, and so, I mean, if there's anything that you would like to ask.
No.
Or,
Okay.
I didn't prepare anything.
Okay.
So.
I feel very confident in Devin's ability to answer questions if anyone else has questions for Devin.
Terry, she's crushed.
Time to share. Shine.
Ready.
I'm ready to answer questions always.
All right.
My question isn't a finance one per se. I'm just looking at like employees and information and just wondering the state if there's always a lot of shuffling at the end of the year. I'm looking over at Jason like, How are we in filling these teacher roles? Looking at the teacher turnover that's here, just curious.
As far as hiring, how are we doing? We're doing really well. We have very few positions left to hire. And this is that time of year when people let us know really late, family circumstances that, you know, make them decide to have to leave last minute. But we're really close to being full again, and it's been a positive hiring season.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Devin? All right. Sounds good. Moving on. We have a very, very small upcoming calendar. It's very strange, but we have two total things listed. So the study session is listed first, our next one on June 27th. It's listed for 4 p.m., which is our study session, but what's not listed is our executive session we plan to have that day starting at 10 a.m. So please remind yourself of that. It's going to be an ADK, also known as ADM. ADM, also known as all-day meeting. I refuse to call it a retreat.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're having an ADM starting at 10 a.m., executive session until 4, and then we'll do our study session at 4. From 4 to 6, I believe, is our goal there. So keep that on your calendars and top of mind. Keith is still working on the project for that. And
We'll
how's that
have
going?
it by the Friday before. So you'll have, right now I'm at 15 pages, so happy reading.
Awesome. Well, our calendars.
And that's going to be
has
here
nothing
and
right.
not Grandview, right?
Right here. Okay. Okay, awesome. And then our next study session after that is going to be August 8th. So there's a lot of dead time in between there, and everyone is charged with enjoying that and not worrying too much about school board stuff if we can. So, any questions on the upcoming calendar? Okay.
We really have nothing?
We technically have the month of July off.
That's usually how it is.
We shouldn't have
But
anything.
what's
Yeah.
happening-
I mean, I'm just so used to stuff.
During COVID, it never stopped. So
Yes.
it's just kind of.
We had
Might be
July
the first
meetings
time
and
we've
COVID.
had
I'm like,
Yeah.
let's
Yes.
talk about our vision and goals in July.
We do need to do that.
Put it on the thing.
I think it's things to think about during.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll give Wendy a break, right?
We'll let
She won't have a break.
We'll let her
She's gonna be a break.
We'll let her get started before we inundate you with all of our things. Okay, perfect. All right, then is there a motion to adjourn the study session?
I move that we adjourn the study session.
Okay, we're adjourned. We'll be starting our our budget hearing at 7 o'clock. So that gives us a 26-minute break.
How did we do that?
And that's in the PDC, yeah. How on earth did we even do that?
There was so much stuff on
Yeah, I know.
Manage the meeting. So
I was so bad halfway through I started to I was so bad. I remember you saying that. And I feel like they have